Welcome everyone to the CITAP Plus Return of the China Market Educational Series, where we chat with key players in the tourism industry to discuss and highlight important considerations when you are looking to work with the Chinese inbound market. My name is Shan, and I'm happy to host this series. Today's episode is a market update for the China market. I've had the opportunity to sit down with Wei Li and 11 Tian of Destination Canada to discuss the current status of the market. I've collected all the stats, figures, and highlights, and I'll be providing all that information to you, our wonderful audience. Let's get to it. There's a lot of information discussed between Wei, 11, and I, but here's an agenda for today. During the session, I first got to sit down with Wei Li of Destination Canada. She's the Regional Managing Director for Asia Pacific as well as the Managing Director for China. After a very fruitful discussion with Wei, I got to sit down with 11 Tian of Destination Canada, who is the Manager of Travel Trade for China. Our discussion started off with Wei and myself, and we were talking about the China CITAP Plus insights. As most of you are aware, pre-pandemic China was Canada's second largest long-haul market. Canada welcomed over 700,000 Chinese tourists in 2019, injecting $2 billion to Canadian economy during their travel to Canada. In the same year, there were over 100 direct flights between Canada and China per week, translating to almost 15 flights per day. In the same year, China was the world's largest outbound market, with 155 million Chinese traveling outside the mainland, spending over $133 billion across the global destinations. While a lot has changed post-pandemic, China's status as an important market for the world and for Canada remains. As you could see from the slide, the World Travel and Tourism Council, otherwise known as WTTC, forecasts that China will contribute 1 in 4 global travel dollars by 2033. Since the Chinese government lifted the travel restrictions in the end of 2022, the outbound travel market is steadily recovering. According to China's Tourism Research Academy, total outbound travel has recovered to around 50% of the pre-pandemic level. This is quite a significant development considering the size of the market and the challenges presented by the suspension of many air connections, visa backlogs, and the higher cost of travel. In terms of outbound destinations, regional Asian destinations are leading the chart, followed by Europe and Oceania. Recovery from American and African regions are relatively slow as influenced by air capacity and geopolitical factors. Canada's not doing too badly in terms of numbers though. We've seen a 200 to 300% growth in tourist arrivals over the same period last year. For the first 6 months of 2023, 75,000 Chinese visitors came to Canada, which is reaching to almost 25% of the 2019 level. This is despite the fact that the capacity between China and Canada remained very limited and stood at below 10% of the pre-pandemic level. There are currently 10 direct flights per week between China and Canada, operated by 7 carriers, namely Air Canada, Air China, China Eastern, China Southern, Hainan Airlines, and Sichuan Airlines, and Xiamen Airlines. The key cities of Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Chengdu, and Xiamen all have direct air connections with either Vancouver or Toronto. There are a total of 21 weekly flights between Hong Kong and Canada as well. With the outbound market expanding and improved regional air connectivity, Chinese travelers are also able to travel to Canada via the cities of Tokyo and Seoul. Another challenge, of course, was in the most recent announcement made by the Chinese Ministry of Culture and Tourism. The announcement included a list that allows Chinese tour operators to organize and sell group tourism packages to over 138 countries, but Canada was excluded from that list. And although Chinese tourists can still freely travel to Canada as independent travelers, groups of friends and business associates, or as family groups, which has steadily grown travel volume since the beginning of 2023, not having a placement on the list means that travel trade is not permitted to sell and market group travel to Canada. This poses a barrier for more visitors to Canada because group travel historically made up 20 to 30% of inbound traffic. Without the support of travel trade partners and their marketing efforts, Canada is not in a highly competitive position of the marketplace. In this environment, Destination Canada continues to recognize China as an important market. DC looks forward to welcoming more Chinese visitors, and we are making full preparation for the recovery of the market. Destination Canada will focus their efforts on social and earned media channels to make sure that high-value guests from China are aware of what Canada has to offer as a destination and continue to consider and plan their holidays to Canada. Destination Canada will also continue to educate the travel trade through programs such as Canadian Specialists, helping the travel trade to prepare for the eventual full recovery. Next up, Wei would like to take us through the findings from the Global Tourism Watch research, which may help us gain more insights of the market trends and consumer preferences. There's lots of information here in the long-haul pleasure traveler sizing. However, we want to highlight here that the potential long-haul pleasure travelers from 11 key cities amounts to about 28 million, supporting the points we made earlier in terms of China's unchanged position as one of the largest tourism markets. As shown here, the total population aged 18 years or more is over 105 million, and over 28 million of those individuals are considered potential long-haul pleasure travelers. Out of those numbers, around 18 million people will likely or very likely consider visiting Canada in the next 2 years. Next, we'll zoom in and focus on the high-value guest market, which is also referred to as HVGs. When we look at the total 28 million potential long-haul pleasure travelers aged 18 years or more, we can see that there are 17% that meet the criteria for the HVG audience definition. Of this 17%, there is a HVG immediate potential of a very sizable 3.5 million. Next, let's look at traveler types according to the Global Tourism Watch. When it comes to the purpose of visiting Canada, holiday visits account for over 70% of the visits, and Chinese travelers are most likely to travel with their spouse or their partner. Around 30% of the travelers will be traveling on fully guided and fully escorted tours. Interestingly enough, high-value guests have a higher preference for escorted tours, as many of them have limited travel time and demand more travel-related services. Post-pandemic, there will be an increased interest in staying in luxury hotels and resorts, as well as glamping. Another interesting trend which we have seen being highlighted in a number of research is the high-value guest's desire to stay longer in destinations to have more experiences. 7 to 13 days will be the typical duration of their holiday. In view of this, Canadian operators may consider to include more legendary products and experiences while developing itineraries for this audience. Now we'll do an overview of the traveler types according to Statistics Canada. In terms of seasonality, July to September are the 3 months that attracted most number of visitors, and this includes students and those visiting friends and relatives. Now you may wonder, where are these travelers going? So let's look at the dispersion and regional demand. The distribution is quite even across the 4 provinces of Ontario, BC, Alberta, and Quebec. The Atlantic provinces are closely following. This could be attributed to the strong Team Canada representation and promotion efforts in the market pre-pandemic. With CITAP Plus being a resource for receptive tour operators and suppliers, it begs the question of whether or not booking preferences are working in our favor. Let's give that a review. Despite the fact that the majority of Chinese visitors plan to travel fully or partially independently in their next trip, 97% of them will still use a tour operator when planning, researching, and booking their holiday. This highlights the importance of working with the travel trade in the China market. So yes, it is still important to maintain relationships with the receptive tour operators. Next, I'm going to highlight everything that was discussed by 11 Tian, the manager of travel trade in China. Following Wei's presentation, 11 can share that although the industry has big changes, it's still exciting to find that whether general or high-value guests, Chinese travelers still have a high potential to work with a travel agent or tour operator to manage their trip to Canada. During recent trade events, Destination Canada is often asked about RTO contacts. Mentioning distribution channels, they are quite diversified and mainly online platforms. These platforms include OTAs, social media channels including WeChat, Redbook, and so on. This year we've conducted sales visits in major cities, and the types of travel trade businesses has changed a lot. Demands for customized bookings, FIT plus local tours are rising. Here are some insights from the in-market to share with you. First and foremost, wholesaler and traditional retailers are switching business from large-size series groups to customized service with a smaller group size. One of the leading wholesalers in southern China mentioned, before COVID-19 pandemic, they had around 35% customized bookings, and after the pandemic, they expect to increase customized businesses to 70% or more. Another thing is that many wholesalers are hiring back their employees to cope with the growing demand for outbound travel. Some traditional operators indicate that RTO's local products are welcomed considering to the higher cost and longer operation period to a fully customized trip. Many of their clients are also willing to join local tours with Mandarin-speaking guides. If any of our RTOs have developed new local products that are of interest to share with the trade in China, you're welcome to send the products to 11 and also the provincial partners in market. Next insight is that with FIT travelers increasing, OTA platforms plays an important role in making their trips happen. The leading OTA, CITAP, has data that reflects their hotel booking in Canada, which is 300,000 room nights by far in 2013, which is surpassing the 2019 level. Our hotel partners are pleased to make sure you have products ready on CITAP. In addition to hotels, FIT travelers are highly likely to book local tour products through OTAs. RTOs with great local tour products, you may consider to open or reopen online channels in China. Other major OTA players such as Tuniu, Figgy, and JD Travel are also rebuilding their outbound products inventory to respond to the market reopening. Last but not least, high-value guests are Destinations Canada's major focus since the COVID-19 pandemic. They've developed networking opportunities with Virtuoso, the leading global network of agencies specializing in luxury travel, which also includes some Canadian destinations and luxury hotels. During the COVID-19 pandemic, their clients contributed remarkable amounts in Canada, mainly for hotels. Currently, some Virtuoso members are willing to approach receptive tour operators who can provide premium local service and experiences to extend to their business in Canada. This will be a great opportunity for RTOs. Destination Canada is always active to share RTOs contacts with our members. So, that's some of the trade insight, and you're welcome to contact us if you have any further questions. That concludes the market update from Wei Li and 1110 of Destination Canada. Just a shout out to say thank you to them both for taking the time to speak to the CITAP Plus audience. And by the end of our discussion, I was really glad to hear that RTOs are still quite relevant to the Chinese market, and there's definitely flights still connecting China to Canada. These were some of the concerns that our suppliers were having regarding the Chinese market. So I wanted to know from Wei and 11, following that, did they have any closing remarks that they wanted to share? 11 would like to share with the audience that she extends her greatest gratitude for everyone tuning in, and if there are any questions or concerns about the information presented, you're welcome to contact her. And last but not least, Wei would like to extend many thanks to CITAP for the opportunity to share Destination Canada's market insights. She hopes that the CITAP members and the industry continue to remain optimistic of the huge market potential of China and continue to engage the in-market travel trade counterparts. She would also like to welcome the members of the Canadian travel industry to visit China in the near future to see through their own eyes the real China post-COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you everyone for tuning in to the CITAP Plus Return of the Market Educational Series. Stay tuned for next episode. We'll look forward to connecting with you then.